A single mother, desperate and clutching her twins' hands, walked into a job interview. Everyone erupted in laughter, mocking the sight. But when the millionaire entered the room and their eyes met, silence fell. What happens next will leave you speechless. Do you believe a mother's love can overcome any obstacle? Hit like if you're ready for this incredible story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more inspiring tales like this one. Rain drummed against the bus windows as Eliza Mason held her daughters closer. Chloe and Lily, 4-year-old twins, slept peacefully on her lap, their small heads resting on her shoulders. The 29-year-old woman stared out at the wet streets of Seattle, her heart pounding faster with every beat. Today was her last chance. She had been out of a job for months, bills piling up on the table in her rented room, and now even that small sanctuary was at risk. The landlady had already called twice about the late rent. Eliza knew that by tomorrow, she might not have a roof over her and her girls' heads. Next stop, Pioneer Square, a mechanical voice announced on the bus. Eliza gently shook her daughter's shoulders. Chloe, Lily, wake up, my darlings. We need to get off. Chloe, always more alert than her sister, opened her big brown eyes. Mommy, where are we? We're going to a very important meeting, remember? Mommy is going to talk to people about a job at a restaurant. Lily rubbed her eyes with small fists. Can't we just stay home? Eliza's heart ached. If only she could leave them with someone she trusted. But there was no one. Her parents had cut contact 3 years ago when she refused to reveal the girl's father. Friends had gradually drifted away when her life became too complicated for their carefree get-togethers. I can't leave you alone, she said softly, helping them put on their coats. You'll be good and quiet, right? We promise, Mommy, they said in unison, a habit that always made Eliza smile, despite the difficulties. They got off in the rain. The Emerald Table was just 2 blocks away, but every step felt like an eternity. Eliza carried Lily, while Chloe held her other hand tightly. Their clothes were clean, but visibly of poor quality. Eliza was wearing her best blouse, a white shirt she had managed to iron with a borrowed iron. When they stopped in front of the restaurant's elegant facade, Eliza felt her courage abandon her with every passing second. The Emerald Table was one of Seattle's most renowned establishments. Crystal chandeliers shimmered behind the large windows, and inside she could see elegantly dressed people seated at tables with white tablecloths. Mommy, it looks like a palace, Chloe whispered in awe. Yes, my love, and maybe Mommy will work here. Inside, an atmosphere of restrained elegance prevailed. Eliza looked around and noticed several people seated in the waiting area, other candidates for the waitress position. They were all impeccably dressed, with professional bags and an expression of self-confidence on their faces. None of them had children with them. The moment Eliza entered with the twins, conversation ceased. She felt stares filled with disapproval and astonishment. One of the candidates, a slender blonde in a pantsuit, whispered something to a colleague who shot them a look of contempt. Eliza approached the reception desk, where a severe-looking middle-aged woman with short, perfectly styled hair was seated. The sign on her desk read, Valerie Thompson, Manager. Good afternoon. My name is Eliza Mason. I have a job interview scheduled for 2 p.m. Valerie Thompson looked up from her documents, and her expression hardened when she saw the girls. Ms. Mason, she said coldly. The advertisement didn't mention the possibility of bringing children to the interview. I apologize, but I had no one to leave them with. I promise they'll be very quiet. This is very unprofessional, Valerie interrupted, not hiding her irritation. The Emerald Table is a serious business, not a daycare. Please, sit over there in the corner. I will interview candidates in order, and you will be last. Eliza's cheeks burned, but she nodded and led the girls to the indicated corner. They sat on uncomfortable chairs, and the twins snuggled up to her, feeling her tension. The hours dragged on. One after another, the candidates were called for the interview, and then left with either satisfied or disappointed expressions. Chloe and Lily tried to be good, but they were hungry and tired. Eliza had only a small loaf of bread in her bag, which she divided between them. "Mommy, when are we going home?" Lily whispered, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. "Soon, my love. Mommy just needs to talk to the lady." But deep in her heart, Eliza knew that after a start like this, her chances were minimal. It was nearly 4 p.m. when Valerie Thompson finally looked at Eliza. Chloe and Lily had fallen asleep on her lap, exhausted from the long wait. Eliza's legs were numb under the weight of her daughters, but she didn't dare move, fearing she would wake them and they would start to cry. "Ms. Mason!" Valerie called out in a sharp tone. "It's finally your turn!" At that moment, the main door opened, and a tall man in an elegant dark gray coat entered the restaurant. He was in his 40s, with dark hair sprinkled with gray, and a face that would have been handsome if not for the constant expression of weariness and melancholy. He carried an aura of quietness, as if the world around him automatically hushed out of respect or apprehension. "Mr. Thorne!" Valerie immediately stood up, her tone becoming fawning and polite. "I wasn't expecting you today." Julian Thorne nodded in greeting, but his gaze swept the interior of the restaurant. It paused for a moment on the group of elegant women in the waiting area, then moved on and froze. In the corner, on uncomfortable chairs, sat a young woman with 2 sleeping girls on her lap. Her light brown hair was carefully tied up, but some strands had escaped the bun after a long day of waiting. The blouse, although clean and ironed, was clearly inexpensive, but it wasn't the clothes that caught his attention. It was the expression on her face. Weariness, determination, and something more. A fragile dignity that prevented her from breaking down despite the obvious difficult situation. Something in his chest stirred painfully. That image, a mother with children on her lap, brought back memories he tried to bury deep in his mind. "Who is she?" he asked softly, without taking his eyes off Eliza. "One of the candidates for the waitress position," Valerie replied with clear irritation. "Very unprofessional. She brought children to the interview. I was just about to wrap up with her." "Wrap up?" "Well, yes, dismiss her. This is not a place for—" "I'll speak with her," Julian interrupted. Valerie straightened up, surprised. "You, sir? But you never conduct staff interviews." "Today I will." His voice left no room for discussion. Eliza noticed that something was happening. Valerie looked surprised, and the elegant man was looking in her direction. Her heart began to beat faster. Was this the end? Would she be told she didn't fit in here? Julian approached her slowly. Eliza tried to stand up, but the girls were heavy and fast asleep. "Please don't get up," he said softly. "I don't want to wake them." His voice was warm, completely different from Valerie's tone. Eliza looked at him, surprised. "My name is Julian Thorne. This is my restaurant." "Eliza Mason," she whispered, feeling her cheeks burn. "I apologize for this situation. I know it's unprofessional, but I truly had no one to leave the girls with." "How old are they?" 4. "They're twins." Chloe and Lily. Julian observed the sleeping children. Chloe had longer hair that fell over her face in soft curls, while Lily had a shorter cut and a calmer expression, even in her sleep. "Beautiful children," he said softly. "They seem to trust their mother." "That's all they have," Eliza replied, before she could think about her words. For a moment there was silence. Julian saw something in that woman's eyes that he recognized. Loneliness, responsibility for someone defenseless, the determination not to give up despite everything. "Why do you want to work here, of all places?" he asked, sitting on a chair in front of her. Eliza was surprised by his calm tone. She had expected scolding, criticism, maybe even being told to leave. "Because I need a job," she answered honestly. "I've been unemployed for 4 months. I've looked everywhere, cafes, bars, even fast food places. But every time they found out I had kids and was on my own, They always found a reason to choose someone else. And why were you fired from your previous job? Eliza bit her lip. It was a painful story. I worked at a small restaurant in the city center. The owner accused me of stealing money from the register. It was a lie, but I couldn't prove it. He fired me without warning. Did you file a complaint with the labor board? With what? His word against mine? And I couldn't afford a long legal battle. The girls needed stability, not more chaos. Julian was silent for a moment, watching her face. He saw sincerity in her, but also the resignation of someone who had grown used to the fact that the world isn't fair. Do you have experience in hospitality? Yes, I've worked for 2 years as a waitress and I finished culinary school. Culinary school? Julian raised his eyebrows in surprise. Eliza hesitated. It was a truth she hadn't intended to reveal. Yes, but it was a long time ago. Now I just need a job as a waitress. I'm punctual, and I work very hard. In Eliza's voice, there was a desperation she tried to hide. Chloe stirred on her lap and murmured something in her sleep. Julian looked at the scene and felt his carefully constructed walls of indifference begin to crack. This woman was fighting for her children, just as his wife had once fought for their son, who was never born. Julian stood up from his chair and for a moment stood in silence, looking at Eliza and the sleeping girls. In his mind, a battle was being fought between business sense and something deeper he couldn't name. "Valerie," he called to the manager, who had been watching with growing concern since the conversation began. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. Do you have more candidates to interview?" "No, Ms. Mason was the last one." "Then you can go home. I'll take care of the rest." Valerie's mouth opened as if to protest, but Julian's look stopped her. She grabbed her bag and left, shooting one last unfavorable look at Eliza. When they were alone, Julian sat down again. "Ms. Mason, can you start work tomorrow morning?" Eliza looked at him in disbelief. "I'm sorry. I'm offering you the job. Base salary plus a percentage of the tips. Does that suit you?" Yes, of course, but..." Eliza shook her head, as if trying to wake up from a dream. "Are you sure? After everything that happened today?" "It's precisely because of that I'm sure." Julian looked at the sleeping children. A mother who is willing to wait 5 hours with her children on her lap just for the chance at a job is someone who can be trusted. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I really don't know how to thank you." "There's one more thing," Julian added. "Where do you live with the girls?" "We rent a room in the industrial area. It's not an ideal place, but I have a proposal. In the back of the restaurant, there's a small apartment. My housekeeper used to live there, but it's been empty for a year. It has 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a bathroom. You can live there with your daughters, temporarily." Eliza felt the world spin around her. This was too good to be true. You're serious?" "I don't have a habit of joking about business matters," he replied, a flash of a smile in his eyes. "The only condition is that the girls can't get in the way of the restaurant's work. Of course, I'll find someone to watch them." "You don't have to. In the back, there's a small garden. They can play there, under the supervision of the kitchen staff, while you work. But they must be quiet during service hours." Lily opened her eyes and looked at the strange man sitting in front of them. "Mommy, who is he?" she asked in a sleepy voice. "He's Mr. Thorne, Lily. He owns this beautiful restaurant. Like a palace," Chloe added, who had also woken up. Julian smiled for the first time in a very long time. "Yes, a little like a palace. And what's your name?" "Chloe, but Mommy calls me Clobug. And I'm Lily. But I'm not a lily in the garden," her sister said with seriousness, which made Julian laugh. "It's a pleasure to meet you girls. You're going to live here with Mommy." The twins looked at Eliza with excitement. "Really, Mommy?" Eliza nodded, still unable to believe what was happening. "Yes, my darlings. We'll have a new home. I'll show you the apartment," Julian offered, getting up, "so you can see if you like it." They walked through the main dining room, past the elegant kitchen, where some chefs were preparing for the evening service. Everyone looked with curiosity at the small procession. The apartment was indeed modest, but clean and cozy. The larger room had a wide window overlooking the garden. The smaller one was perfect for the girls' bedroom. The kitchen was tiny but functional. "Clobug, look!" Lily ran to the window. "There are flowers and a bench here, and a swing," Chloe added, pointing to an old wooden swing hanging from a large oak tree. Eliza stood in the doorway and looked at her daughters, who for the first time in months seemed truly happy. She turned to Julian, her eyes full of gratitude. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me." Julian looked out the window at the girls playing. His face grew serious. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Ms. Mason. Some of us just wait longer for it." There was a note of sadness in his voice that Eliza couldn't understand, but she decided not to ask. Everyone had their secrets, their wounds. She had hers too. "When can we move in?" she asked. "Tonight, if you like. Here are the keys." He handed her a small set of keys. "Tomorrow, at 8 a.m., you'll meet the rest of the team. The first shift starts at 10. Eliza took the keys, feeling their weight in her hand. They were the keys to a new life. "Mr. Thorne, I don't know how to repay you. Please, just do a good job and take care of those girls. That's enough." That night, as Eliza tucked her daughters into bed in their new room, Chloe asked, "Mommy, is that man good?" "Yes, my love, I think he's very good." "Then why does he look so sad?" Eliza stroked her daughter's hair. "Sometimes good people are sad, Clobug, but maybe our smiles will make him feel better." Outside, the rain whispered. But for the first time in months, Eliza felt safe. She didn't yet know that this rainy day would change not only her life, but also the life of the lonely restaurant owner who had lost faith in risking his heart again. 3 weeks passed like a dream. Eliza woke up every morning at 6, prepared breakfast for the girls, and then took them to the garden, where they could play under the watchful eye of Chef Henry, the oldest chef, who had adored the twins from day one. "There's nothing like a child's laughter in the kitchen," he would say, offering them pieces of warm brioche. Eliza quickly found her place on the team. She was punctual, polite, and had a natural talent for serving customers. Some clients were already specifically asking for her tables, which did not go unnoticed by the other waitstaff. "The new girl is lucky," whispered Sarah, the oldest waitress, to a colleague. "But let's see how long that luck lasts." Eliza tried not to pay attention to the whispers and envious glances. She focused on her work and the girls, who were flourishing in their new environment. Chloe made friends with the restaurant's cat, Ginger, while Lily loved to help Henry with simple tasks like measuring flour or whipping cream. Julian watched this small family from a distance. Every morning, sitting in his office with a cup of coffee, he looked out the window at the garden where the girls were playing under the oak tree. Their laughter reached him even through the closed windows, filling a space that had been dead for years. Sometimes he found himself unconsciously smiling as he watched Lily trying to catch a butterfly, or Chloe reading a book in the shade of the swing. These were moments that both warmed his heart and reminded him of what he had lost. "Mr. Thorne?" Eliza appeared at his office door with a tray. "I brought you lunch." Over the last 3 weeks, this had become a routine. Eliza would bring him meals in his office, as he rarely went down to the main dining room during service. "Thank you," he replied, looking up from his documents. "Chef Henry made French onion soup today. He said it's your favorite." "Henry talks too much," Julian murmured, but there was warmth in his voice. Eliza placed the tray on the desk and was about to leave when he stopped her. "How are the girls settling in?" "Wonderfully. I've never seen them so happy. Lily says she wants to be a chef like Henry, and Chloe says she's going to learn to read all the books in your library." For the first time, Julian smiled. "Maybe we should arrange some lessons for them, Sam." "That's very kind of you. but I don't want to overstep. It's not overstepping. A child should learn. At the door, Henry appeared with a serious expression. Mr. Thorne, there's a lady here who wants to talk to you about Eliza and the girls. Eliza went pale. What? She didn't give her name, but she says it's urgent. She's waiting in the main dining room. Julian stood up decisively. I'll talk to her. Maybe I should come with you, Eliza proposed, visibly nervous. No, stay here. I'll be back in a moment. In the main dining room, an elegant woman in her 40s wearing an expensive pantsuit was waiting. She had short dark hair and the confident look of someone used to getting what she wanted. Mr. Thorne. She stood up from her chair. My name is Dr. Camilla Jones. I'm a lawyer. How can I help you? I represent the interests of a person who has legitimate concerns about the situation of Ms. Eliza Mason and her daughters at your restaurant. Julian felt a chill run down his spine. What concerns? Do you know why Ms. Mason was fired from her previous job? Yes, she was falsely accused of theft. Falsely? The woman smiled coldly. Do you have proof of that? And does she have proof to the contrary? I'm not the one being questioned here, Mr. Thorne. My client is concerned about the safety of the children. A restaurant is a workplace, not a daycare. Did you vet Ms. Mason's records? Her past? Her connections? I don't see the need. Perhaps you should, especially if you're concerned about the reputation of your establishment. The lawyer placed a business card on the table. If you'd like to discuss this matter discreetly, before the situation gets out of hand, please call. Some information can be unpleasant, but it's better to know it now than later. She left, leaving Julian with thousands of questions and a growing unease. When he returned to his office, Eliza immediately noticed the change in his demeanor. What did she want? She asked, fear in her voice. She asked about you and the girls. About me? But who? I don't understand. Julian looked at her for a long time, searching her eyes for any sign that she was hiding something important. But he saw only sincere panic. Eliza, is there anything I should know? Something from your past that could… No, she interrupted him quickly. I mean, I don't think so. I haven't done anything wrong. But in her voice was a note of uncertainty that did not go unnoticed by Julian. For the first time in 3 weeks, he felt a wall had risen between them. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep for a long time. She lay in bed, listening to the peaceful breathing of her sleeping daughters, and she wondered who could have hired the lawyer. Was it related to her previous job? Or maybe something much worse, the girl's father? Cuddled in her pillow for the first time in weeks, she felt afraid that everything, this safe home, the job, the peace, could end as suddenly as it had begun. The following days were filled with a strange atmosphere of tension. Julian became more distant, although he tried not to show it. Eliza noticed his colder glances, shorter conversations, the way he avoided being alone with her. The lawyer's business card lay on his desk like a silent accusation. On Thursday night, as the restaurant emptied, Eliza cleaned the last tables. The girls were playing in the garden under the watchful eye of Chef Henry. It was already dark, but the warm lights from the kitchen created a cozy atmosphere. "Clobug, come to Mommy," she called from the window. "Time for a bath." Silence. "Chloe!" she called louder, feeling the first pang of anxiety. Henry came out of this kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "What's going on?" "I don't see Chloe." "Lily, where's your sister?" Lily was sitting on the swing, sucking her thumb. She always did that when she was scared. "I don't know, Mommy. She was here and then she disappeared." Eliza's heart began to race. She ran into the garden, calling her daughter's name. Henry joined her, lighting up the bushes and behind the trees with a flashlight. "Chloe, this isn't funny. Come out now." Julian heard the shouts from the main dining room. He ran outside and saw Eliza in a panic, searching every corner of the garden. "What happened?" "Chloe is gone. She was just here. And now." She didn't finish the sentence because from a distant corner of the garden came the bark of a dog and the sound of a child's laughter. They all ran over and saw Chloe sitting on the grass next to a golden retriever, belonging to a long-time restaurant customer. "Clobug!" Eliza fell to her knees and hugged her daughter. "Where were you?" "Mr. Davis said Boris had new tricks," the girl explained, not understanding the adult's panic. "I wanted to see." Mr. Davis, a man who frequently dined at the restaurant, approached with an apologetic expression. "I'm so sorry. I thought you knew. Clobug said she could play with Boris." "Chloe!" Eliza hugged her daughter tighter, but there was anger in her voice. "Never, never go away without permission. Do you hear me?" The girl began to cry, scared by her mother's tone. "I'm sorry, Mommy." Julian watched the entire scene with growing irritation. The lawyer's words about the children's safety at the restaurant echoed in his mind. What would have happened if Chloe had really gotten lost? If she had gone out into the street? If... "This can't happen again," he said softly but firmly. Eliza looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "I hope so," he replied coldly, "because if it does, I'll have to make other decisions." The words sounded like a threat. Eliza felt her stomach drop. The next day, the atmosphere at the restaurant was tense. Chloe and Lily, sensing the change in mood, were unusually quiet. They sat at a table in the kitchen, drawing with colored pencils, while Eliza nervously served customers. "Mommy looks sad," Lily whispered to Henry. "Sometimes adults worry, little one," the chef replied. But he too felt that something had changed. Around noon, a young man in a suit entered the restaurant. He approached Eliza, who was arranging cutlery on a table. "Eliza Mason?" "Yes, I'm Marcus Reed from Seattle Palette magazine. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your work here." Eliza looked at him, surprised. "I don't understand." "We received a tip that the Emerald Table has a waitress with an interesting story. A single mother with children living at the restaurant. That's a private matter, of course. But our readers love these stories. From rags to riches, you know? Especially when we find out about certain controversial circumstances from your previous employment." Eliza went pale. "I have nothing to say." The journalist smiled unpleasantly. "Maybe we can talk in a more private setting." At that moment, Julian appeared. "Can I help you?" "Marcus Reed, journalist. I'm right here. Writing an article about your restaurant and this unusual employee situation." Julian looked at Eliza, who was as pale as a ghost. "Please leave my restaurant. Immediately. But this is a matter of public interest. This is my private property. Please leave before I call security." The journalist shrugged and left, but not without one last meaningful look at Eliza. "What was that?" Julian asked when they were alone. "I don't know. Someone must have told him." "Who? And about what?" Eliza's mouth was open, but she didn't know what to say. She felt like she was getting entangled in a lie. But the truth was even more terrifying. "Eliza," Julian took her hand. "You have to tell me what's going on. What is all this about?" For a moment they looked into each other's eyes, and between them hung a question Eliza wasn't ready to answer. "I can't," she whispered finally. "Not yet." That night, as the girls slept, Eliza sat at the window and looked out at the dark garden. She felt that her happy dream was coming to an end. Somewhere out there, in the shadows, lurked her dark past, ready to devour everything she had managed to build. And in his office, Julian held the lawyer's business card, wondering if he shouldn't just call her. Do you think Eliza is doing the right thing by keeping her secret from Julian? Leave a comment with your opinion. The weekend at the Emerald Table was buzzing with life. Saturday lunches attracted Seattle's elite. Business people, artists, politicians. Eliza tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but she felt the customers' eyes on her, as if they all already knew about the article that was about to come out. "Table 8 is asking for you," Sarah said with poorly disguised satisfaction. "It's the famous food critic, David Peixoto." Eliza approached the table, her heart pounding. Peixoto, a man in his 50s with a gray beard, was studying the menu intently. "Good morning. How can I help you?" He looked up and observed her carefully. "Ah, so you're the famous waitress with children. I'm sorry. I got a tip from a fellow journalist. It seems you have an interesting story." He smiled unpleasantly. "I'm not just interested in the food, but also the people who serve it, especially those with baggage." Eliza felt her cheeks burn. "Can I take your order?" "Of course, but first, is it true that you were fired from your previous job for theft? And the girls? Who's their father? I've heard several theories." "Please, just tell me what you'd like to order," she said softly, trying to stay calm. From the kitchen, suddenly, came Lily's scream. Eliza jumped from the table and ran there, leaving the critic surprised. In the kitchen, Lily had her hand under cold running water, crying. Henry was trying to calm her down. "What happened?" "She touched a hot pan," Henry explained. "Nothing serious, but she got scared." Eliza hugged her daughter. "It's okay, my love. Mommy's here." "It hurts," Lily sobbed. At that moment, Julian entered the kitchen with an angry expression. "What's going on? Customers are complaining that you left them in the middle of service. Lily got burned. Henry could have taken care of her. Your place is at the tables." His words hit Eliza like a slap. "She's my daughter, and this is my restaurant. If you can't balance the two." "Mr. Thorne," Henry intervened softly. "It was just an accident." "Lately there have been too many accidents," Julian replied coldly, "and too many problems." Eliza stood up, still holding a crying Lily in her arms. In her eyes, anger burned. "If you think I'm a problem, maybe I should leave." "Maybe you should," he replied without hesitation. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Even Henry held his breath. "All right," Eliza whispered. "I'll give you my notice tomorrow morning." She walked out of the kitchen, carrying the sobbing Lily. Chloe, who had been watching the entire scene from a corner, ran after them, her eyes wide and full of tears. "Mommy, what's happening? Why is everyone yelling?" "Nothing's happening, Clobug," Eliza lied, afraid she would burst into tears herself. "Let's go to our room." That night, Eliza packed her belongings in 2 old suitcases. The girls were asleep, tired from the day's emotions. They had nowhere to go. But she couldn't stay in a place where she wasn't welcome. Around midnight, she heard a soft knock on the door. She opened it, expecting Henry, but saw Julian. He looked tired and remorseful. "Can we talk?" "The girls are asleep." "Good. What I have to say isn't for their ears." They went out to the garden. The moon shone brightly, illuminating the bench under the oak tree. They sat side by side, but an abyss lay between them. "Yesterday I acted like a complete idiot," Julian began. "You acted like a boss who's tired of problems," Eliza replied softly. "No, I acted like a coward." She looked at him in surprise. "I called that lawyer," he continued. "I found out some things about you and the girls, that the twins' father is Leo Kingston, one of the richest businessmen in the country, that you hid them from him and everyone else. That's why you lost your previous job. Someone recognized you and turned it into a scandal." Eliza closed her eyes. "It's true. And now he's trying to find me?" she asked, fear in her voice. "It seems so. That lawyer said he's become very influential. He has political ambitions. It seems he wants to fix his past." "What does that mean?" "I don't know. Maybe he wants to bribe you into staying silent. Or maybe he wants to take my girls away," she finished in a whisper. Julian turned to her. "Eliza, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was scared," she exploded. "Scared that you would kick me out like everyone else, that you'd think I was a problem, a burden." "Do you think I'm that small? I don't know who you are," she cried openly now. "I don't know anything about you, about your past, about why you're so closed off. I don't know why you sometimes look at the girls with so much sadness." Julian stood up and took a few steps. When he turned back, his eyes glistened in the moonlight. "I was married," he said softly. "Elisa was my whole world. We tried to have children for 5 years. When she finally got pregnant, we were the happiest people in the world. We bought a crib. We painted the nursery. We came up with names." His voice broke. Elisa died in her 7th month of pregnancy along with our son. One night, her heart just stopped beating. The doctors couldn't explain why. Eliza covered her mouth with her hand. After she died, I sealed myself off in this restaurant like it was a tomb. I didn't want to love anyone again because I couldn't survive another loss. Then you showed up with the girls. He approached her and knelt down in front of the bench. For the first time in 5 years, I wanted to live again. I heard their laughter in the garden and thought that maybe life had a purpose, that maybe Eliza wanted me to be happy. He took her hands in his. And when I started to be afraid of losing you, I acted like the ultimate coward. I chose loneliness because it seemed safer. Eliza, I love you. And I love Chloe and Lily. It doesn't matter who their biological father is. It doesn't matter how complicated your past is. I want to be a part of your future. Eliza was now sobbing uncontrollably. All the fears, all the loneliness, all the sleepless nights, it all flowed out of her with the tears. I love you too, she whispered. But what if he finds us? We'll deal with it. Together. It was that word, together, that she had longed to hear her entire life. The following weeks were like a honeymoon. Julian and Eliza rediscovered each other, this time without secrets or walls. He told her about Elisa and the pain he carried in his heart. She told him about the years of raising the girls alone and the fear of tomorrow. Chloe and Lily blossomed. Seeing their smiling mommy and Mr. Thorne, who now came down from his office more often to talk with them, filled them with joy. At night, he read them stories in the garden, and they called him our Maître Thorne. Mommy, is Mr. Thorne going to stay with us forever? Lily asked one night. I don't know, my love. Why do you ask? Because I want him to stay and be our daddy. Eliza felt a warmth in her heart, but also unease. Wouldn't it be too soon? Wouldn't the girls get too attached? Her fears proved prophetic. On a Wednesday morning, 2 elegant cars arrived at the restaurant. From the first, the familiar lawyer, Dr. Camila Jones, emerged. From the second, a tall, handsome man in an impeccably tailored suit. He had dark hair with a few gray strands and the confident look of someone accustomed to winning. Leo Kingston, Chloe and Lily's father. Eliza was serving breakfast to regular customers when she saw him. The plate slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. All heads turned in her direction. Eliza, Leo said calmly. It's good to see you. It wasn't a casual tone. It was the voice of a man who had come to take what he wanted. Julian immediately appeared at her side. Can I help you? Leo Kingston, I think your girlfriend has told you about me. Eliza isn't my girlfriend. She's my fiancée, Julian said, surprising himself with the lie. Leo smiled coldly. Congratulations, although I'm not sure she informed you about all the details of our shared past. He knows everything, Eliza replied, finally finding her voice. Really? And he knows I'm the biological father of those 2 adorable girls? A silence fell over the restaurant. All the customers stopped eating. Maybe we should go to the office, Julian proposed. I'd prefer to see my daughters, Leo said. After all, I've never seen them. Because you didn't want to, Eliza shot back. I was young, unprepared. But now a lot has changed. I'm divorced. I have a stable situation. And I want to be a part of my daughters' lives. At that moment, the laughter of the girls came from the garden. Leo walked toward the door, but Julian blocked his way. Not so fast. Do you have the right to prevent me from seeing my own daughters? The lawyer handed Julian the documents. This is a court order for preliminary DNA tests and visitation rights, all in accordance with the law. Eliza felt the world collapse around her. You can't just show up after 6 years and... I can and I have, Leo interrupted. I'm their father, no matter how much you tried to hide it from me. Hide it? You're the one who disappeared. You're the one who wanted me to get rid of them. That was a different situation. Now, I'm ready to take responsibility. Chloe and Lily ran into the dining room, having heard the raised voices. They stopped when they saw the strangers. Mommy, what's happening? Chloe asked. Leo looked at them with fascination. Seeing the living proof of his biological connection to those little creatures was a shock for him. Chloe had his eyes, and Lily the shape of his face. "These are my daughters," he said softly to the lawyer. "Your daughters were raised by me for 6 years," Eliza exploded. "I fed them when they were sick. Your daughters cried asking why they didn't have a father. And now they do," he replied calmly. Lily started to cry, scared by the adults shouting. Chloe hugged her protectively. "Who is he, Mommy?" Chloe asked. Eliza knelt down beside her daughters. He's the man who helped Mommy have you." "Is he our daddy?" Lily asked through her tears. The silence that followed was unbearable. "Yes," Leo said finally. "I am your daddy." "But we have Mr. Thorne," Chloe protested. "Mr. Thorne isn't your real daddy," Leo replied softly. "I am." The girls looked at Julian with fear, as if they were afraid he would leave them. "No one is taking anyone," Julian said, kneeling beside Eliza. "Sometimes people have more than one adult who takes care of them." Leo didn't seem satisfied with this diplomacy. "I'd like to spend some time with the girls, alone. It's my right." "No." Eliza hugged her daughters tightly. "They don't know you. They're scared." "That will change." The lawyer handed over the papers again. "According to the decision, Mr. Kingston has the right to 2 hours of contact with the children this week, in the presence of a child psychologist." "And if we don't agree?" Julian asked. "Then the next step will be court, and things could get a lot more complicated." Leo leaned down to Chloe and Lily. "Girls, would you like to play with me? We could go to the park, get some ice cream." "We don't want to," Chloe said firmly, taking Julian's hand. "We want to stay with our Mr. Thorne." For the first time in many years, Leo Kingston heard the word no and couldn't ignore it. But in his eyes, something shone that boded ill. "We'll see," he said softly. "We'll see." The following days were a nightmare. Leo Kingston didn't give up. Every day he came to the restaurant, trying to establish contact with the girls. He brought expensive gifts they rejected and talked about the big house he had in New York and the trips they could take together. Chloe and Lily reacted worse and worse. Lily started sucking her thumb again and woke up crying at night. Chloe became aggressive, screaming at the stranger who claimed to be her father. "My daddy wouldn't abandon Mommy," she yelled when Leo tried to hug her. "But I didn't abandon you. I just didn't know you existed," he explained patiently. "You're lying!" Chloe screamed. "Mommy said you knew." Eliza watched her daughters suffer and felt helpless. Every night they cried, asking if that stranger would take them away from Mommy and Mr. Thorne. "I won't let him take you," she promised, but she wasn't sure of her own words. Julian consulted with lawyers, but they all said the same thing. A biological father has rights that are difficult to contest, especially when he has influence and money. "You could adopt the girls if you get married," one of the lawyers said. "That would strengthen your position." "But Leo Kingston would still be their biological father," another added. "And if he wanted to fight for full custody?" Eliza asked. "Why would he want to? He has political ambitions, a wife, children, a stable family. This is good image for a senatorial candidate." Eliza felt nauseous. Was Leo really treating his daughters as props in his political game? On Friday night, when the restaurant was closed, Chef Henry brought troubling news. "There was a man here today, when you weren't around," he said. "He asked the staff about you, about the girls, offered money for information." "What man?" Julian asked. He didn't introduce himself, but he looked like a private investigator. "He wanted to know about your habits, how long Eliza has worked here, if the girls are often alone." Eliza went pale. "What did you all tell him?" "Nothing, of course, but some of the staff. Well, you know, everyone has their financial problems." That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, listening to her daughter's peaceful breathing, and felt a growing fear. Leo was clearly gathering material against her. But what? The next day brought the answer. Valerie Thompson, the former manager who had been fired, showed up with a lawyer. "Do you mind a brief conversation?" the lawyer asked. "About what?" "About your inappropriate parenting practices." Eliza looked at him in disbelief. "I'm sorry?" Valerie smiled triumphantly. "I told Mr. Kingston how you leave the children alone at the restaurant, how you allow them to bother customers, how you don't control them. But those are lies. And what about that time Chloe was missing for half an hour? Or when Lily burned herself in the kitchen because no one was watching her? They were accidents. And the fact that you're sleeping with your boss, using the children as a pretext to stay at the restaurant." Eliza felt her cheeks burn. "That has nothing to do with my motherhood, doesn't it? And is this environment suitable for small children? A restaurant where you work until late at night? Where there's alcohol and strangers?" Julian appeared at the door, having heard the raised voices. "What's going on here?" "Mr. Thorne," the lawyer stood up. "I represent Leo Kingston in the custody case for his daughters. We would like to ask you some questions about Ms. Mason as a mother. As a mother, she's impeccable." "Really? And don't you think a relationship with your boss might influence your objectivity in making decisions regarding the children? Don't you think she's using the children to manipulate you?" "That's absurd," Valerie intervened sarcastically. "Or maybe you can tell us about those nightly visits to her room? While the children are sleeping on the other side of the wall." Julian took a step toward her, but Eliza stopped him. "Get out of here," she said softly. "Now?" "Yes, of course." The lawyer put the papers back in his folder. "But this isn't the end. Mr. Kingston is very determined to ensure his daughters have proper care and a proper environment." When they left, Eliza collapsed in a chair. "They're gathering material against me. They're trying to prove I'm a bad mother. They won't succeed. What if they do?" She looked at Julian with despair. "What if the court decides they're right? That the girls would be better off with a rich father in a big house than with me in a restaurant?" "Eliza, maybe we should separate," she whispered. "Maybe if I weren't with you, they wouldn't have an argument." "No!" Julian knelt down in front of her chair. "I won't let you give up. I won't let them separate us." "But what if—" He interrupted her with a kiss. "Trust me, I have a plan." At that moment, Chloe and Lily ran into the room, scared by their mommies crying. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Lily asked. Eliza opened her arms and hugged her daughters. "Because I love you very, very much." "We love you too, Mommy," Chloe said. "And Mr. Thorne too." "And that man who says he's our daddy?" Lily asked. "We don't love him at all," Chloe said firmly for herself and her sister. "He's not our daddy. Our daddy wouldn't abandon Mommy." Hearing those words, Julian felt his heart both break and heal at the same time. Those girls who weren't his blood, whom he had met only a few months ago, loved him like a child loves a father. And now, someone was trying to take them away from him. But Julian Thorne wasn't going to give up. He had already lost one son. He wouldn't allow this to be taken from him again. On Monday morning, a court summons arrived. Leo Kingston was officially filing a petition for custody of his daughters, citing inadequate educational conditions provided by the mother. Eliza was sitting in the kitchen, documents spread on the table, feeling like a cornered animal. Julian tried to comfort her, but the words sounded hollow against the legal jargon that could destroy her life. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "The mother places the children in an unsuitable commercial environment, exposing them to contact with strangers at different times of day and night. The children are deprived of a stable family home and proper pedagogical education." "That's absurd." "What if it isn't?" Eliza looked at him with despair. "What if they're right? What if the girls really would be better off in a normal house with a garden, their own rooms, without the smell of food and the noise of the restaurant?" "Eliza, stop!" The mother, maintaining an informal relationship with her employer, may make decisions motivated by financial reasons and not by the children's well-being. She threw the papers on the table. "They're saying I'm with you just for the money." At that moment, a crying Lily ran into the kitchen. "Mommy, that man is here again!" Through the window, they saw Leo talking to a man near his car. The latter was taking pictures of the restaurant. "Journalist," Julian muttered. "He's preparing a media campaign." "Businessman fights for daughters with a homeless mother," Eliza said bitterly. "I can already see the headlines." Chloe joined her sister, holding her favorite teddy bear. "Mommy, is that man going to take us away?" "No, my love, no one is going to take you away." But even as she said it, Eliza wasn't sure of her own words. That same afternoon, another visitor arrived. This time, a child psychologist appointed by the court. A young woman named Dr. Anya Sharma would conduct interviews with the girls. "It's a standard procedure," she explained. "I just want to talk to the children and see how they feel in their environment." She spoke with each of the twins separately. Chloe was suspicious and answered briefly, but Lily, always more open, talked about her life at the restaurant. "I like living here," she said, showing her drawings. "Mr. Henry teaches me how to cook, and Mr. Thorne reads me stories, and Ginger the cat sometimes sleeps in my bed." "And what do you think about the man who says he's your daddy?" Lily frowned. "He's not my daddy. My daddy wouldn't abandon me. Mr. Thorne is my daddy." After the conversations, the psychologist also spoke with Eliza. "The girls seem happy and healthy," she said. "But don't you think a restaurant is an unusual place for small children? Where would we live? I can't afford to rent an apartment in Seattle. And Mr. Kingston offers them a house, financial stability, the possibility of an education at good private schools. He's offering them a stranger who wasn't interested in them for 6 years of their lives. But people change. Maybe now he's ready to be a father?" Eliza felt the ground disappear from under her feet. Even the psychologist seemed inclined to believe in Leo's goodwill. That night, as the girls slept, Eliza and Julian sat in the garden in silence. In the air hung the smell of autumn leaves and an impending change. "I'm thinking of running away," Eliza said finally. "What?" "We can take the girls and leave for another outdoor state. We'll start over." "Eliza, that's crazy. You'd really lose your rights to the children then. And what about now?" She looked at him with despair. "Do you see what's happening? Everyone, the court, the psychologist, the media, they're all on his side. A rich businessman against a poor mother with problems. You're not alone. You have me. What if that's not enough?" She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "What if we lose? What if the court decides the girls are better off with him?" Julian took her hand. "That's not going to happen. I won't allow it. You can't know. I know one thing. These children love you, and the court will see that. Or maybe not. Maybe they'll only see what Leo wants to show them. A rich, stable father and a chaotic mother who lives in a restaurant with her lover." A long silence followed. In the distance, they could hear the hiss of cars on the street. And from the kitchen came the smell of freshly baked bread for the next day's breakfast. "Eliza," Julian said finally, "if I asked you to marry me, would you?" She looked at him, surprised. "I know these aren't the ideal circumstances, but I love you. And the girls, I want to be your family, a real family. Julian, if we were married, my position as a step-parent would be stronger. I could adopt the girls, but that wouldn't change the fact that Leo is their biological father. No, but it would show the court that we're offering them a stable home, a real home, and that this isn't just a casual relationship." Eliza was silent for a long time, looking at the windows of the room where her daughters were sleeping. "What if we lose anyway? Then we'll lose together." There was a determination in his voice that made Eliza feel the first flicker of hope in weeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you, but not for legal reasons." She looked into his eyes. "Because I love you, and because I want us to be a family." They kissed under the moonlight, unaware that on the corner of the building, a man with a camera had just taken a series of photos. By morning, those photos would be on Leo Kingston's desk. The war for the girls had just escalated. The next morning, Eliza woke up with a strange sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, she knew what to do. Julian was already awake, sitting at the window, watching the sunrise over the garden. "You don't regret it?" she asked, approaching him. "Regret what? The best decision of my life?" She hugged him from behind, feeling the warmth of his arms. "How do you want to do this? A wedding in such circumstances?" "Quick and discreet. I'll go to the courthouse this morning. I'll handle the formalities. We can get married this week. And the girls? We'll tell them after everything is settled. I don't want them to worry about another thing." But Chloe and Lily had their own way of sensing changes. During breakfast, they watched their parents with curiosity. "Mommy smells nice today," Lily observed. "And she's smiling differently," Chloe added. "Mr. Thorne also looks like he got something," said the little philosopher Lily. Eliza and Julian exchanged knowing glances. Those children were too smart to hide anything from them. In the afternoon, while the girls were playing in the garden under Chef Henry's watchful eye, an unexpected guest arrived. It was Mr. Edward Davis, the man with the golden retriever, with whom Chloe had run away that day. "Sorry to bother you," he said, "but I wanted to talk to you." "Go ahead," Julian replied. "I heard about the lawsuit, about that man who's trying to take the girls from you." Eliza looked at him. Surprise. "How do you know?" "Seattle's a small city and I'm a retired judge. I know people. I hear things." Edward looked at the girls playing in the garden. "And I wanted to tell you that I'm willing to testify in court." "Testify about what?" "About the mother you are. About how much those children love you, Mr. Thorne. I've been coming here to dine for 2 years, and I've never seen children happier." Tears came to Eliza's eyes. "That's very kind of you." "It's not kindness. It's justice," Edward said, patting her shoulder. "That man may have money and influence, but you have something more important, true love. And the court, if it's fair, will see that." After he left, Eliza felt a little better. Maybe they weren't completely alone in this fight. That night, when the restaurant was closed, Julian gathered the entire staff in the main dining room. Henry, the waitresses, the kitchen helpers, everyone listened in suspense. "I wanted to tell you all personally," he began. "Tomorrow, I'm marrying Eliza." A murmur of surprise went through the room, followed by applause. Henry smiled broadly like a father at his daughter's wedding. "But there's one more thing," Julian continued. "We'll probably be visited by journalists, lawyers, and maybe even court representatives in the coming weeks. I ask that you remember that the private life of our family is not material for gossip." "We're with you," said Sarah, the oldest waitress who had previously not been very friendly to Eliza. "Those girls belong here, with you." Hearing that, Eliza's heart swelled. The people she worked with every day had become her family. "There's one more thing," she added, finding her courage. "Maybe not everyone knows, but I graduated from culinary school. If you'll allow me, I'd like to help in the kitchen sometimes. I have some ideas for new dishes." Henry's eyes widened. "Culinary school? Why didn't you tell us?" "Because it's a long story. But now, with so many problems, maybe it's worth using all of our skills." The next day, Eliza and Julian got married at a small courthouse. The witnesses were Henry and Dr. Edward Davis. Eliza wore a simple white dress, Julian a dark suit. There were no flowers, no orchestra, no 100 guests. Just the two of them, and the promise to stay together through good times and bad. "Mr. Julian Thorne, do you take Ms. Eliza Mason as your wife?" "I do." "Ms. Eliza Mason, do you take Mr. Julian Thorne as your husband?" Eliza looked into the eyes of the man who had risked everything for her. "I do." After the ceremony, they returned to the restaurant, where a surprise was waiting for them. The entire staff had prepared a small party in the garden. Henry had baked a cake, and Sarah had decorated the tables with flowers. Chloe and Lily, when they found out what had happened, were delighted. "Is Mr. Thorne really our daddy now?" Lily asked. Yes, my love, Eliza answered. Now we're a real family. And no one's going to separate us? Chloe asked. No one, Julian said firmly, picking her up in his arms. I promise. But even in that happy moment, Eliza couldn't shake the unease. She knew Leo wouldn't give up. The marriage might strengthen her legal position, but it wouldn't stop a man determined to get what he wanted. That night, as she lay in her husband's arms, her husband, for the first time in months, she felt truly happy. But that happiness was as fragile as crystal glass, and Eliza knew it would only take one careless gesture for everything to shatter. Outside, the rain whispered, and in the distance, the lights of Seattle flickered. Somewhere out there, in his elegant mansion, Leo Kingston was probably planning his next move. But today, Eliza didn't want to think about that. Today, she was the wife of the man she loved, and the mother of 2 girls who were her whole world. Tomorrow would be tomorrow. Today, she was happy. A week after the wedding, Eliza was in the kitchen of the Emerald Table, an apron tied around her waist, preparing her first signature dish for the customers. Chef Henry watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Her movements were confident, precise, like someone who truly understands the art of cooking. Duck rondelles with cashews and a honey thyme sauce, she explained, delicately arranging the pasta. My grandmother's recipe, but with a modern twist. I've never seen that technique for making pasta, Henry admitted. Where did you learn that? In school, but mostly from my grandmother. She used to say that cooking isn't just about food, it's about telling stories. At that moment, Julian entered the kitchen with a serious expression. Eliza, we need to talk. What happened? The court papers arrived. The hearing is scheduled for next week. Eliza felt the knife slip from her hand. So fast? Leo Kingston accelerated the process. He has influence. Henry discreetly left the kitchen, leaving them alone. Eliza leaned against the counter, feeling the world sway around her. Do we have a lawyer? Yes, Dr. Richard Jones, a family law specialist. But he warned me. Kingston has a very good legal team. That night, as the girls slept, Eliza and Julian sat in the garden with folders full of documents. The lawyer had prepared them for what might happen in court. They'll try to present you as an unstable mother, Julian said, reading the notes. They'll emphasize that you live at your workplace and that your previous job. Scandal. But that's not true. It doesn't matter what's true. What matters is how it looks to the judge. Eliza stood up and walked around the garden. In the moonlight, the swing swayed gently in the wind, the same swing where her daughter spent carefree hours. Julian, maybe we should get divorced, she whispered. What? He jumped from his chair. If they claim living at the restaurant is not a place for children, maybe if I rented an apartment. If we separated, they wouldn't have the argument that I'm manipulating you. Eliza, don't say that. We're a family. What if this family makes me lose the girls? Julian approached her and took her hands. You won't lose them. I won't allow it. But what if... He interrupted her with a kiss. Trust me, I have a plan. The next day, a man Eliza wasn't expecting came to the restaurant. David Peixoto, the food critic who had previously asked her unpleasant questions. Mrs. Thorne, he said with a polite smile, could we talk? I have nothing to add to your article. It's not about that. I heard you've started cooking. I'd like to taste your cuisine. Eliza looked at him. Suspicious, yeah? Why? Because I'm a food critic, and I like to discover talent. At Julian's insistence, Eliza prepared a tasting of her dishes for Peixoto. Duck rondelles, smoked pork hock soup, her great-grandmother's recipe, a breaded steak with a nut crust, and for dessert, a tapioca pudding with honey and cashews. Peixoto ate with concentration, taking notes. Eliza stood to the side, nervously tugging at her apron. Where did you learn this? He finally asked. From family, and at culinary school. These flavors, this isn't common cuisine. It's a cuisine with soul, A cuisine that tells a story. It's exactly what I wanted. Peixoto put down his cutlery and looked at her with respect. I'd like to write an article, not about your personal problems, but about your cooking, about how someone can transform traditional dishes into works of art. Eliza's heart beat faster. Really? Really? And besides, Peixoto hesitated. I have a child the same age as your daughter's. If someone tried to take him from me, I'd want people to be on my side. The article was published 3 days before the hearing. The title was Seattle's Hidden Treasure, the chef who cooks with her heart. Peixoto described Eliza as a talented chef who blended family traditions with modern gastronomy. He wrote about her rondelles as small masterpieces and her approach to cooking as a philosophy of life. This is amazing, Sarah said, reading the article aloud in the kitchen. Listen to this. Eliza Thorne is an example of a woman who, despite life's difficulties, didn't give up and is making her dreams a reality. Her cooking is proof that talent and determination can overcome anything. Henry smiled broadly. Now Mr. Kingston will have a problem. It will be hard to convince the court that you're hiding from responsibility when the newspapers are writing about you as a rising star in gastronomy. But Eliza wasn't so optimistic. It's just an article. Leo has lawyers, money, influence. And we have the truth, Julian said. And we have each other. The night before the hearing, Eliza bathed the girls as she did every night. Chloe and Lily sensed the tension at home, although no one explained the details to them. Mommy, why is everyone sad? Lily asked. Not everyone, my love. Just adults sometimes worry about things. About us? Eliza hesitated. Yes, a little bit about you too. But we're good girls, Chloe protested. The best girls in the world. Then why are you worried? How to explain to a 4-year-old that sometimes being good isn't enough? That the adult world is full of injustices and cruelties. Because I love you so much, she said finally. And sometimes when you love someone very much, you worry that nothing bad will happen to them. We love you too, Mommy, Lily said, hugging her. And Daddy Julian too. Daddy Julian, Eliza repeated with a smile. That's what the girls had called him since the wedding. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep for a long time. Tomorrow would be the day that would decide her future. Tomorrow, she would know if love, determination, and fighting were enough to keep what was most important. Beside her, Julian, her husband, partner, and the father to her children in every way but biological, was sleeping. In the next room, Chloe and Lily, her world, her everything, were sleeping. Tomorrow she would fight for them with everything she had. The day of the hearing began with rain. Eliza stood in front of the mirror, trying to calm her trembling hands. She put on a dark gray pantsuit, the only professional outfit she had, and tied her hair in a tight bun. She wanted to look serious, responsible, like someone who deserves the court's trust. It's going to be okay, Julian said, adjusting her collar. The truth is on our side. The girls were with Henry, who promised to take them to the park so they wouldn't stay home worrying. Chloe hugged Eliza goodbye. Mommy, come back soon. I will, my love. I promise. The Seattle Civil Courthouse looked grim in the autumn rain. In the lobby, Eliza saw Leo Kingston with his legal team. 3 men in expensive suits who talked quietly, reviewing documents. Leo looked confident, like a man accustomed to winning. Mrs. Thorne, their lawyer, Dr. Richard Jones, approached her. Everything's ready. Remember what we agreed. Calm. Truthful, don't let them provoke you. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. Judge Ana Reyes was a woman in her 50s with a severe but fair gaze. This case concerns the custody of the minors Chloe and Lily Mason, she began. The petitioner, Leo Kingston, seeks the assignment of his parental rights, invoking biological ties and the ability to provide the children with better living conditions. Leo's lawyer was the first to stand up. He was an older man with gray hair and the confident demeanor of someone who had won hundreds of cases. Your Honor, my client, for years, had no knowledge of his daughter's existence. When he found out, he immediately took steps to correct the situation. Mr. Kingston can provide the children with a stable home, the best education, and financial security. He went on to talk about Leo's mansion, his stable financial situation, and his plans to send the girls to the best private schools. He presented Eliza as a woman who lived in uncertainty, changed jobs, and lived in a commercial location unsuitable for children. The mother, despite her undeniable good intentions, cannot guarantee the children's stability. Her relationship with her employer raises questions about her motivations. Living in a restaurant is an unsuitable environment for minors. Eliza listened and felt her world crumbling. Every word sounded so logical, so convincing. On paper, Leo really did seem like the better option. Then it was her lawyer's turn. Dr. Richard Jones stood up calmly and looked at the judge. Your Honor, this case is not about money or the size of a house. It is about love and responsibility. He began by telling Eliza's story. How she raised the girls alone for 6 years, how Leo disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy, and how he rejected his daughters before they were even born. Mr. Kingston had 6 years to come and be a father, 6 years to get to know his daughters, and he only showed up when he thought it could be useful for his political career. He called their witnesses. The first was Dr. Edward Davis, the retired judge. He spoke about the mother Eliza was and how happy the girls were at the restaurant. For 2 years I've watched this family, he said in a calm voice, and I have never seen children more loved, more well-behaved, or happier. Then, Chef Henry testified, who talked about daily life at the restaurant and how the girls were surrounded by care, not just from their parents, but from an entire community of people who loved them. They're not children left to fend for themselves, he emphasized. They're children raised by an entire family, because the restaurant is our family. The psychologist, Dr. Anya Sharma, also testified. Her report was mixed. The girls were happy and healthy, but the restaurant environment was indeed atypical. However, she added, in my conversations with the children, their attachment to their current caregivers is clearly evident. They refer to Mr. Thorne as Daddy and see their eventual separation from their mother as a threat to their security. Finally, it was Eliza's turn. Her heart pounded as she walked to the witness stand. Mrs. Thorne, his lawyer began, please tell the court about your daughters. Eliza took a deep breath. Chloe and Lily are my everything. For 6 years, I've done everything to give them love, security, and stability. We may not live in a mansion, but we have a home full of love. I may not be rich, but I am rich in what matters most. And what do you feel for Mr. Chen? Nothing, she answered sincerely. He's a stranger to me, a man who rejected my daughters before they were even born. A man who only appeared in our lives when he thought it could be useful to him. Leo's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. He was relentless. Is it true that you were fired from your previous job for theft? It was a false accusation, but you were fired. Yes. Is it true that for months you did not have a fixed residence? Yes. But is it true that you are in a relationship with your employer, on whom your living and professional situation depends? Isn't it a relationship of dependency? It's love. Can you guarantee that, in the event of this relationship ending, the children will have a guaranteed roof over their heads? The question hit her like a lightning bolt, because the truth was, she couldn't guarantee it. If something happened to Julian, if their relationship ended, what would happen to the girls? Our relationship won't end, she said. Is that your guarantee to the court? That your relationship will never end? The silence in the room was louder than any scream. Eliza knew she couldn't promise something like that. No one can. I can't guarantee the future, she said finally. I can only promise that I will love my daughters and take care of them for as long as I live." When she returned to her seat, she saw love and support in Julian's eyes, but she also saw unease. Leo's lawyer was good, very good. Leo testified last. He spoke fluently about his plans, his desire to make up for lost time, his willingness to sacrifice his career for the good of his daughters. "I regret that decision from 6 years ago," he said, looking directly at the judge. "I was young, scared, but now I'm ready to be the father my daughters deserve." He sounded sincere, convincing, like a man who truly regrets his mistakes. The judge announced a recess for deliberation. The verdict would be delivered in an hour. The longest hour of Eliza's life had just begun. The hour of waiting felt like an eternity. Eliza and Julian sat in the courthouse hallway, holding hands. Words weren't needed. Each of them prayed in silence for the same miracle. "No matter what happens," Julian said finally, "we won't give up. We'll keep fighting. What if we lose? Then we'll lose together." Finally, they were called back into the room. Judge Reyes looked tired, as if weighing human destinies was as difficult for her as it was for the parties in the case. After hearing the testimonies and analyzing all the evidence, she began. "The court has reached the following conclusions. Mr. Leo Kingston is, without a doubt, the biological father of the minors. His financial and social situation is stable. He can provide the children with a high standard of living and education." Eliza's world began to crumble. "However," the judge continued, "the court must be guided, above all, by the well-being of the children. And the well-being of children is not just material security, but mainly emotional security." A pause. "Mr. Kingston, for 6 years, showed no interest in his daughters. He did not support them, either financially or emotionally. His sudden appearance at a time when he is planning a political career raises questions about his true motivations." Leo went pale. On the other hand, Mrs. Thorne, for 6 years, raised her daughters alone, providing them with love, care, and emotional stability. The fact that her material situation is not ideal cannot be a reason to remove her parental rights. Especially significant for the court are the statements of the psychologist, which clearly show the children's attachment to their current caregivers. They refer to Mr. Thorne as Daddy and see their eventual separation from their mother as a threat to their security. The judge looked at Leo. "Mr. Kingston has the right to contact with his biological daughters. The court grants him the right to meetings, 1 Saturday a month, for 4 hours, in the presence of a social worker. Contact may be expanded after 1 year, provided a positive bond is established with the children." Leo stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. I'm their father." "You are their biological genetic donor," the judge replied coldly. "A father becomes one over years of daily care and dedication. Mr. Thorne has proven to be that." She looked at Eliza and Julian. "Primary custody of the children remains with the mother and her husband. The court expresses the hope that all parties act for the good of the children and not for their own ambitions." Eliza felt her legs give out. They had won. Her daughters were staying with her. Leo left the room without saying a word, surrounded by his lawyers. His face expressed anger and humiliation, but Eliza didn't feel triumph. She felt only relief and gratitude. In the hallway, Henry was waiting for them with Chloe and Lily. The girls threw themselves into their parents' arms. "Mommy, Daddy, Julian!" they shouted at the same time. "We missed you!" "We missed you too," Eliza said, hugging them tightly. "And now we'll never be separated again." A month later, the Emerald Table celebrated a double victory. Not only had they won the lawsuit, but the restaurant had received its first Michelin star, largely thanks to Eliza's signature dishes, which had enchanted food critics from all over the country. That night, when the restaurant was closed, their new expanded family sat in the garden at a long table. Henry served his specialties. The waitresses laughed at work anecdotes, and Chloe and Lily ran between the tables, distributing their drawings to everyone. "Mommy," Lily approached her with a serious expression. "I drew our family." On the drawing were Eliza, Julian, the two girls, Henry with a big spoon in his hand, Ginger the cat, and a big house that looked suspiciously like a restaurant. "And who is this?" Eliza asked, pointing to a figure on the side. "That's the man who said he was our daddy," Lily explained. "But he's far away because he doesn't live with us." "And what do you think about him?" Lily pondered seriously. "Maybe he's not bad, but our real daddy is Daddy Julian, because a real daddy is the one who stays." These words from a 4-year-old contained more wisdom than all the legal arguments in the world. When the children finally went to sleep, Eliza and Julian were left alone in the garden. She sat on the bench under the oak tree, the same one where they had first declared their love. "You know something," Eliza said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I don't feel like I'm in a fairy tale." No, I feel better. Fairy tales end, and this is real life. A real, imperfect, beautiful life." Julian kissed the top of her head. "And it's just beginning." In the restaurant windows, the lights were on. Henry was preparing for the next day. Somewhere in the distance, a group of friends laughed, returning from a night out. Life was continuing on its course, simple and beautiful. And in the small room above the restaurant, 2 girls slept, with everything a child needed: a home, love, and the certainty that they would wake up tomorrow in the arms of the people who had chosen them forever. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better. It was real. I sincerely hope today's story pleased you. Please subscribe to the channel to continue following similar content. Leave a like and comment on what you think. See you in the next video.